Hi, everybody. Welcome to my presentation on building a scalable virtual classroom on DigitalOcean. So I wear two hats. I am the product manager of BigBlueButton, and I am also the CEO of Blindside Networks. So I'm Fred Dixon, and if you are involved in the BigBlueButton community, you've probably heard about me. My email address is there, and if you want to reach out, you can always tweet us at BigBlueButton. All right, so I want to do two things, sort of what is BigBlueButton and why we created it. And I want to then talk about what I'll call the COVID tsunami, scaling using DigitalOcean, the API and droplets, stabilization, optimization, and then looking ahead and how you can set up your own BigBlueButton server on DigitalOcean in 30 minutes or less. And in terms of just the players, so Blindside Networks, we're a commercial company. We started the BigBlueButton project in 2008. And BigBlueButton is an open source web conferencing system designed for one purpose, online learning. So it's meant for virtual classrooms, for teachers and students to connect, and for teachers to teach students anywhere in the world. And we've been using DigitalOcean since 2015, and that was important to our success, as you'll learn in a few minutes. So some fun facts. So BigBlueButton started at Carleton University here in Ottawa, Ontario. In Canada, so if I say something like A, you'll know Canadian. Blindside Networks, we host BigBlueButton for universities and colleges, educational institutions all around the world. We've hosted over 1.8 billion minutes of online classes in the last 24 months. And during COVID, our hosting increased 60 times in size. And that's kind of the core of the story. And during COVID, we, Blindside Networks, hosted some schools with over 100,000 simultaneous teachers and students. So I want to talk a bit more about BigBlueButton to kind of lay the stage. So it's a web conferencing system designed for online learning, and it has the features that you expect in a normal web conferencing system. So you can share your chat, your screen, webcam, audio, video. You can upload slides, you can do breakout rooms, you can raise the hand, your whiteboard, all the capabilities you'd expect in a virtual classroom. And in terms of the use cases that we designed it for, virtual office hours, flipped classroom, so you get students to work ahead of time, and then you use the online class for collaboration, group collaboration, and full online classes. And our target market's K-12, higher ed, and corporate education, anywhere where there's training and learning. Very different than a business meeting, like you're trying to teach students and help them learn and navigate through the journey. I'll give you some visuals in terms of how we focus on the teachers. So if students are in the class and they raise their hand, the teacher will get a message in the upper hand corner that says, hey, so-and-so's raised their hand. We have a collaborative whiteboard that allows the teacher to pick students to collaborate with them, say for tutoring, or maybe bring the whole class in, which is kind of fun. Polling is built in. It's very easy to do a poll to engage the students, to see how they're learning, get their opinion, use it inside the class. And we make it very easy. And you can also have students type their response in as well. Breakout rooms is there, which got used very heavily, putting students into the groups, having them collaborate, come back, present to the main class. And we do shared notes as well. So you can collaborate together with students. And there's some locking ability where you can even lock out the shared notes so that students can't write on it. You want to just use it for an agenda. All these things are designed for teacher and for learning. And recently we have a newer version, which we've been working on, which has a live dashboard showing the teacher who's in the class, how they're participating, and how they're learning is based on the response to the polls. So the open source project focuses a lot on making sure the teacher can effectively engage students, kind of acting like a co-pilot for the teacher. So that's the software and what it does, but why does it exist? And there's only one of these. That's our planet, and we are all on it. And if you look at the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, the UNESCO goals, there's 17 goals for sustainability. Quality education is the fourth one, and it actually underpins a lot of the other goals. Access to high quality education is critical for current generation and even more so the next generation to address some of these goals. And without putting too light on it, education transforms lives. Many people in this call may have had the ability to walk down the street and go to a school. That's not the case for other people, for everyone in the world. And access to education transforms lives. So what BigBlueButton, the reason why we exist is we want to enable teachers to transform student lives around the world. That's the why. How we did it was by building out a virtual classroom system and making it available as open source. And things were going good. I got some screenshots here of these are tweets that was sent out, people using BigBlueButton around the world. Here's sort of like a kind of a video conference type event. Here's an online class going on. Here's a whiteboard session. And here's a Brady Bunch session. And everything was going well until this guy showed up. And then everything changed. So we had been doing BigBlueButton since 2007, and the tsunami hit. So what did this mean when COVID hit? Well, so and I'm going to take you on this journey, this very vivid journey of what happened in those first 2 or 3 months in 2020. So in December 31st, 2019, the virus was reported in China. So remember, we're Blindside Networks is hosting virtual classrooms for customers around the world, and BigBlueButton is being used by educational institutions around the world. This started to worry us a lot because we were offering virtual classrooms, but a lot of schools would just have a small component of their school in virtual classrooms. On March 3rd, Stanford announced they're going to close. So we knew that in North America, where the bulk of our customers were, we had roughly 2 weeks to scale, or not, before the tsunami was going to hit us. So at that point, up until that point, we had been doing everything with, we've been using DigitalOcean for testing, but we had been using physically dedicated servers because they just, they're very powerful. And you can probably anticipate where this story is headed. We cannot scale with physically dedicated servers. And we estimated at the time, we didn't know, but in retrospect, we only had about 2.5 weeks to scale. So we were watching the news, we were watching tweets. Rutgers, one of our customers, there's a message goes out, they're closing Thursday, Friday, and they're going online, fully online on the 23rd. And they use us for that small portion of the virtual classes. That portion was going to change. So I'm going to show you the graph of our hosting environment. And this is concurrent sessions. And we are right about here, right? So things are kind of trucking along. This is what actually happened, but we didn't know that at the time. All we knew that there was going to be a tremendous amount of scaling, and we had a problem. The problem was that in setting up all of our servers, we had been doing dedicated servers, and we had this long set of instructions that we set them up, and they required over 4 hours to set up. So 4 hours for one server, and we expected we needed to scale like an order of magnitude, and we did not know how to do it at the beginning. So we looked around like, what can we do? And we knew we didn't have much time. It turned out we had 2.5 weeks. So what we needed to get to was 10 servers. We need to be able to bring 10 servers online in under 5 minutes and do that over and over. And like, as the image says for Han Solo, like, how are we going to get out of this one? All right, so we had been using DigitalOcean for quite a few years, and we've been using it for testing BigBlueButton, for spinning up some servers, but we hadn't used it in production. We were very familiar with the DigitalOcean API, and we knew what we needed to do. And the question was, could we use it for production? Could we scale up and do 10 servers under 5 minutes with DigitalOcean API? So we began to do a lot of prototyping, and a lot of late nights ensued. And every day we're watching the news and trying to figure out, are we going to be able to get this online before the tsunami hits us? And so we took those 4 hours of steps, most of it manual, and we started to distill it down into code to basically automate all those steps to provision a server, a droplet, and connect it to the rest of our infrastructure so it could come online with our load balancer, be available, monitor, and so on. And it led to the screen. So this may not look a lot, but this is the screen that saved our company. So after about 2 weeks, I remember this vividly. This is a screenshot from my computer. Monday morning was coming. The usage was starting to go way above what we ever had before. And I had 10 windows open. And in each window, I was running a set of scripts to bring up a DigitalOcean server and bring it online. And I could do this by basically running 10 pretty windows in parallel. And I sat back and looked at that, and the guys behind me were calling out saying, we got more load coming in. I said, we got 10 more servers coming online. They'll be online in a few minutes. And I did this the whole day and the previous days. And that saved our company to be able to do that and scale up. And it worked. Our customers came and they were able to hold the virtual classrooms. And if we were not able to do this, we were done. If a Monday came and we couldn't scale, there would be nothing we could do in 24 hours to be able to scale by Tuesday. They would have all gone elsewhere. So we had a 2-week window. We had one shot at it, and we were able to get it running on DigitalOcean. But there was actually 2 things we had to solve. One was getting it running on DigitalOcean. And the second one was this. We began to scale very quickly. So we started off with 10 servers, and then we had 100 droplets, and then we went to 400 droplets. So our DigitalOcean account rep, who didn't know us from a hole in the wall, right? We just had an account with them for years. We kept emailing him asking for more capacity. And he kept bumping up our capacity. And at some point, it became really clear that we were going to use, and we did not know how much we needed, right? Keep in mind, every school is going to close. All of our customers are going to go online. So DigitalOcean, our account rep, I remember this vividly. He said to me, Fred, how many servers do you need? And then my response was, how many you got? Because we literally did not know how many servers we were going to need. And therefore, we did not know if DigitalOcean had enough servers to handle our capacity. So if that answer was no, we would not be around. And the answer was yes, we got you. So we began working really closely with them to figure out where the capacity was available. And we adjusted where we were launching servers. Every morning at 6:45, myself and the developers would wake up and we called the launch, whether we could launch all the servers we needed for the day: Toronto, New York, San Francisco, London, Singapore. So we were launching around the world because we had customers around the world. And then what that led to was we literally got to 60 times the hosting capacity we had before. And that was incredible. And it was over a period of months. Obviously, the winter term was high, summer was low, and then all the schools that we had pretty much went full online, most of them in North America. So in terms of optimization, we peaked at over 1,000 DigitalOcean servers around the world. And we were optimizing it where we were launching them just in time and shutting them down just in time. DigitalOcean set up a shared Slack channel for a quick turnaround. And the ethos of DigitalOcean, it felt like we were interacting with a startup. They were there with us. And the feedback that we got and the quick turnaround was a godsend. Because not every time, everything didn't work every time. But when we had to be able to have a close channel with them, we could get really good turnaround and know that what was going on. We also use Kubernetes from DigitalOcean to deploy our LTI integration. And DigitalOcean's low bandwidth costs, because we're doing virtual classrooms, audio, video, screen share, it saved us a lot of money. Okay, so let's talk about phase 3 and looking ahead. And what I want to say is, because we were able to scale in DigitalOcean, it meant Blindside Networks was able to grow our business very quickly. And so did the BigBlueButton open source project, of which we are the main contributor. So it has actually grown into the world's classroom. And in terms of BigBlueButton, which we run stock BigBlueButton on our hosting environment at Blindside Networks, the project became localized in over 55 languages. Over 100 developers have contributed to the project. So when you think about the why it exists, to enable teachers to engage students online in virtual classrooms anywhere in the world as an open source project, that became a realization when we started to see how many people were localizing us into different languages around the world. We were heavily used in Germany. This was a survey that was done of 79 German institutions. BigBlueButton was used the most heavily. And in terms of just how the project focuses on online learning, so we deeply integrate with pretty much all the major learning management systems around the world: Canvas, Sakai, Moodle, Schoology, Genzabar, and Brightspace. They've all built this in. Moodle, for those of you that are in the educational market, is the world's most popular learning management system. It's over 50% of the world's K-12 higher ed workforce training runs on Moodle. And so by being open source and by scaling, one of the things I like to announce is that Moodle, the project, is actually building in BigBlueButton into the core of Moodle 4.0. So again, our vision of making sure that any teacher in the world would have the ability to teach students online is realized, and partly it was the COVID and the amount of schools that had to go online that really drove that growth. And this is probably the slide that encompasses the most. So as an open source project, when I saw this, I knew that we had made a significance. So this was a screenshot of the server usage in Baden-Württemberg, a state in Germany. And they were running 4,000 BigBlueButton servers to service 3,000 Moodle schools. And they peaked at 185,000 concurrent teachers and students. And they did it all with BigBlueButton. We helped them. They ran them on servers in Germany. But it was an example of how the project had reached a certain maturity where an entire state in Germany could go online using BigBlueButton. And for that, we were really happy to see. So to summarize, we lean heavily on DigitalOcean, both for the API and the droplets. And there was a lot of uncertainty, and we just went for it. And DigitalOcean was there for us. The support was outstanding. To be able to connect directly with the engineers, to be able to get feedback on launching, just making sure that we were able to make the best use of the platform, it was fantastic. It took a lot of stress off of us. We had enough to deal with. DigitalOcean was by far a net positive, and they enabled us to scale. And as a result of that, millions of teachers and students around the world have been able to take their classes online using BigBlueButton. And I promise you, if you want, you could be able to set up BigBlueButton yourself on DigitalOcean. You could visit bigbluebutton.org. There's a script that will run. You set up a DigitalOcean C8 instance. You give it a host name, and in that script, you basically provide it the name of the host name, what version of BigBlueButton you want to install, and it will install Let's Encrypt certificate. It will configure BigBlueButton. In about 30 minutes, you'll have your own virtual classroom running on DigitalOcean. And we invite you to try it out. That is my story of how we scaled and how the 2.5 weeks of my life I will never forget. If you have any questions, I'm going to hang around here for as long as I can. And the time we have remaining, I'd be happy to answer them. You can reach me, Blindside Networks, and definitely with Twitter, you can tweet us out at BigBlueButton. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions folks have. Okay, so you're gonna see me turn to the right here as I read a few of the chat messages I see coming up. So is it possible to create classrooms, and how many students can join one classroom? So if you set up your own BigBlueButton server, so I'll go back to one of the screenshots. You can, BigBlueButton, we recommend it for classes of up to 200 students. And a lot of work has gone in over the last 18 months to scale it. So that number used to be less. But if you set up a single DigitalOcean instance, you could have about 200 users on it. That could be one class of 200, two classes of 100, 4 of 50, and you would likely connect it to a front end, such as Moodle or another learning management system. I've been using DigitalOcean to spin up BigBlueButton for 2 years now. Yes, without issues. Works without issues. There was a question. This is actually about BigBlueButton. Yes, on the mobile device. So we are pure web application. There's no software to install. It uses WebRTC to communicate real time between a student and the server, and the teacher and the server. We haven't built a native app yet for Android or iOS. And so one thing you might have to do is if you have the sleep or the power saving, you might have to touch the screen every now and then. So that's what the person was asking. The question is on the future of digital classrooms. That's a really good question. We are early on in virtual classrooms. Like if you look at a video conferencing system today that was built for business, that is not the end result of what a virtual classroom can be. When students are online and teachers are trying to teach, there's a journey that the students are going through in terms of learning, to be able to remember something, to recognize it, to apply it, evaluate, to measure and create. There's a journey that goes through, and the teachers are constantly trying to coach students in terms of creating helping that journey. So you can think of a virtual classroom as the teacher's trying to do 3 things: create an effective environment for learning, teach content to the class and understand where the class is in terms of learning that content, and coach the individual student. And our vision for the virtual classroom is that the environment should act as a co-pilot for the teacher. That was the learning dashboard part of that in terms of giving metrics. but there's a lot of things that go on in a virtual classroom that the teacher can be assisted. And I should say, like, we don't think of the virtual classroom as replacing the physical classrooms. The physical classrooms will always be with us. But the virtual classroom, for many people around the world, is the gateway to getting an education. And if you can't go to class, maybe you're an athlete and you're just traveling, you want to be able to take your classes online. We want to complement what goes on the physical classroom, and we want to exploit the advantages you have online, like the real-time interaction, the ability for students to engage each other, the ability for the teacher to set up content, have the students collaborate content, mark it up, remix it. So yeah, there's a lot in the future in terms of engagement, collaboration, and analytics. And that's what we're going to be pushing really hard on BigBlueButton. Okay. It's funny, another question about BigBlueButton's feature. Is it possible to preload content in the breakout rooms? That feature is coming. You'll be able, as a teacher, to set up a breakout room and be able to, see if I got the screenshot, be able to put some slides in there, and those slides will be visible during the breakout rooms. In terms of like just the BigBlueButton project itself, we are constantly optimizing it. So you're going to see more capabilities coming in terms of simultaneous webcams. We're using a project called Media Soup, which is a really good WebRTC SFU. It will mean more webcams, of course, more bandwidth, but DigitalOcean pretty good in terms of like how low they charge for bandwidth. And again, as I said earlier, it helped it save a lot of money. And we, like in terms of where we use it around the world, I put the slide up earlier, like Singapore, Frankfurt, Toronto, San Francisco, New York. And we built our own software to kind of spin up the droplets and spin them down so that we try to optimize based on our customers and the region and their usage. All right. Other questions that you have? I think we still have a few more minutes. So where we're using anyone before DigitalOcean. So we used Amazon as well for some pieces of our infrastructure for processing recordings, but we were using physical servers before. Because of the real-time aspect of BigBlueButton, the real-time audio and video, we had decided to use physical servers because, and again, we've been at this project for 12 years now, and in the early days, virtual servers weren't that great for real-time applications. The context switching wasn't fast enough. The latency was too low or too high. And so we ended up building out our infrastructure using physical servers, which at the time was fine. We could, as we grew, we would add two or three more servers, and we just naturally grew. That just wasn't possible when COVID hit. And therefore, we were using DigitalOcean for like some testing, some prototyping, and we were very familiar with the API. And that's when we just basically moved all in. And we have no more physical servers anymore. We're done. I think the question is why BigBlueButton? Maybe the question is why did we start a company up around building a virtual classroom? If you think back in 2007 when we started, there were about 150 commercial web conferencing systems on the market. There were none of them that were dedicated towards online learning. Or let me back up. There was a few that were, but there was no open source solution. And at that time, back in 2007, you use Flash for doing real-time content. And so we were able, with some open source pieces, Red 5 media server, we were able to build an open source web conferencing system that was used at Carleton University in the fall of 2007. And being an entrepreneur and having started up companies before, there was a market that was going to grow. The web browsers were going to get better. The internet was going to get faster. Computers were going to get faster. So if we built out this system and it was focused on one market, we believed we could grow as the demand for online learning grew. Little did we know that, of course, a pandemic would be a paradigm shift and that everybody would be going online. So when COVID hit, there was a lot of work we did in BigBlueButton. we did probably about 30 releases of the open source project during 2020. And a lot of those releases were, some of it, the contributions come back from the community. But we did BigBlueButton because we felt two reasons. We believed in the entrepreneurial opportunity of providing hosting and traditional open source business model, but we also believed in the social benefit of enabling anyone in the world to have access to a high quality online learning. So I've done a couple startups before. I knew the value of focus, and I thought this was a market where if we focused on, we could provide a solution. And we chose to do it as open source so that we could build a worldwide community around the product, of which turned out to be very successful. Any other questions that folks would like to ask? So the question is, now that we have time to scale, how stable is the cloud operations in terms of automatically scaling? So we actually wrote our own scaler. So it's monitoring the classes, it's monitoring, and it's spinning up servers around the world as school comes online. One thing about classes is that they're usually during the day and in the evening. So we're able to start up just before the load hits, run it, and then we take the servers offline, wait till they drain, and then retire them, so or destroy them. So this is the logic that we built out our own side. We like to say at Blindside Networks and BigBlueButton, the learning never stops. I've been at this for 13 years and constantly learning every day. In terms of DevOps and operations, we do monitor everything like extensively, and of course we always want to add more. What our focus right now is, there's a lot of schools that have deployed not small deployments of BigBlueButton. So Baden-Württemberg is the example. And look, we did not know about it. They literally deployed and built up this huge infrastructure for thousands of BigBlueButton servers, and then they came to us. Now we've been interacting with people in the community, but you always can't tell sometimes what they're doing, or like the context for the questions. But I think the future for the project for BigBlueButton is to continue to improve the stability and scalability. So more webcams coming with using Corrento. And there are just lots of use cases for online learning that we can continue to push at. More capabilities in breakout rooms, more for engaging, more whiteboard capabilities, all with a focus on ensuring that the teacher can engage students. I mean, the way we say it is to build the most teacher-centric virtual classroom. A story around the company name. So Blindside Networks, obviously it's a play like, large companies can get blindsided by small entrepreneurial companies that approach the problem in a different way. So we thought that we were approaching virtual classrooms through an open source business model that was different than anything we had seen. So we needed a name that was going to be different than BigBlueButton, so hence Blindside Networks. And the BigBlueButton name, it started off as kind of a fun thing. We wanted to set up a virtual classroom as easy as pressing a single BigBlueButton. And then the name stuck. And of course, we got the domain name, the Twitter handle, and others, and we just ran with it. We figured if Yahoo can be $1 billion company, sure, why not? BigBlueButton. But BigBlueButton is the open source project. Blindside Networks and other companies around the world are the commercial companies behind it. And BigBlueButton owns the code. It's fully open source. Anyone in the world is welcome to download, build on top of it. And we've seen a lot of adoption, and a lot of companies embed BigBlueButton into the product, which is amazing. So, and a lot of those companies give back by either contributing features, supporting development. There is a foundation, BigBlueButton Inc., which is a membership-based foundation to support the project. And some companies contribute to that foundation as well. And so that holds the copyright and supports the ecosystem around the world. All right. That was, I'm very happy to have had the chance to share with you the journey. It was somewhat intense, but we made it. Thanks for DigitalOcean.